Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Liaquat, guys. And we're going through Kanz. I don't know if you can see that. Keep trying to. Yeah, can you see that now? Excellent. Right, so this is Kanz al-Daqaiq, right? It's written by Imam al-Nasafi. And this is a very, very sort of like condensed kind of text, and it's very tricky in certain areas to kind of navigate yourself through it if you haven't really studied fiqh before. What I would suggest is, if you're reading this book, try to read some other books with it. You can read, for example, like Bahr al-Ra'iq and Nahr al-Faiq, written by the two brothers, Ibn Nujaym brothers. You can even read Tabyin al-Haqaiq, written by Imam Zayla'i. You can even read Hidayah or something on those lines, Badai' Sana'i, to kind of supplement a lot of the information here. I am not going to go into great detail of explaining these issues because, like I say, I don't really find it beneficial for students to go beyond the text, right? So if you want to study stuff which is at a very, very deep level, I would suggest reading the commentaries yourselves. Anyway, so let's look at the text then. So last week, if you remember, we mentioned about this idea of definition. So the definition of trade is mubadalatul mal bil mal bit taradi, that we have this idea that wealth can be exchanged. You can actually transfer ownership of your wealth to someone else as long as both parties are happy to do so, as long as there's consent. And we said it has to be some sort of an item that people are interested in, which is Islamically permissible to sell. So it can't be pig, etc. It can't be alcohol. It can't be something which is illegal, banned Islamically. It has to be something which is halal. Right, so that was the definition. And so now we're actually going to be looking at the cornerstones of a transaction. What are the basic cornerstones of a transaction? What's the kind of like components that you ultimately need, and if you don't have, the transaction doesn't exist. So that's what we're actually looking at today. So he says, وَيَلْزَمُ بِإِيجَابٍ وَقَبُولٍ وُضِعَ لِلْمُضِيِّ. So it becomes binding, meaning a transaction becomes binding with an offer and acceptance. So let's say, for example, like I am a customer and I go to the shops and I want to buy myself, let's say, a bar of chocolate. So I am the customer, the shopkeeper is the seller. So we want to exchange. I want to give my money to the shopkeeper and the shopkeeper wants to give the chocolate to me. And so we have this mubadalatul mal bil mal bit taradi, both sides are happy. But we need to look for the cornerstones. So as long as these two cornerstones are found, the transaction is happy, is good, not happy. We're happy. So what are they? So number one is that there has to be an offer. So an offer is where a person shows interest, shows the other person that they are interested, and has put down a form of statement or an action which indicates they want the item, right? So if I go to the shops and I say, how much is this chocolate bar for? I want to buy this chocolate bar, right? So that's an offer, that is, or a form of an offer. And the other side, if they say, yes, I'm willing to sell it, here you are, that is the acceptance. That's the qabul, right? Online, if you go online, you buy something, you want to see a laptop, and you go to that laptop, you show your interest by checking out. So by you checking out, you are actually making an offer there, right? And they are accepting it on the other side. And it can also be the other way around. Maybe they are making the offer to you. Maybe they're saying to you, would you like to buy a laptop? And you say yes, right? So here you have. Now, what we have to understand about the offer and acceptance is that offer and acceptance is not advertisement. So if you go to the shops and you see a price tag on an item, that is not an offer. Like if you go to buy some trousers or a shirt or a jacket or some shoes and you see a price tag on there, this price tag is not the offer, right? If you go to the counter and then they say to you, no, we're not selling it to you, you can't say, well, according to fiqh, ijab, you gave the offer and I accepted it. No, that is not an offer. That is an advertisement. When you go to the counter and you show them that, it's as though you're making the offer of that price. And therefore they respond by saying, okay, and they, scan it on the machine and then you pay them. So this is basically the offer and acceptance. So advertisement is not offer and acceptance. Remember that. Offer and acceptance is where both parties have reached right to the end, and all that's left now is an indication from both sides that they want to that they're ready to exchange. That's the kind of offer and acceptance. And like I said, it can be done on the customer side and it can be done on the seller side. Same with like auto trader. If you see an auto trader selling cars and you see a car that's being sold and you contact them and you're saying, I want to buy this car, I'm ready to buy, here's my cash. You're making an offer. That's not an offer that they're giving, that's an advertisement. So this is the first thing. The second thing is ijab and qabul is not a promise. As in, a promise, if you say to someone, for instance, let's say there's a lady and she's selling her bag, and another lady says, I'll buy that bag off you next week when my money comes. So when I get my money, I'll buy it off you then. This is not an offer on her behalf, nor is an acceptance. So when that day comes, if this lady doesn't buy the bag, says, well, I've changed my mind, that's totally fine. She can't be taken to court and said, well, look, you said you're going to buy the bag on, let's say, Saturday when your money comes, and Saturday's come and you haven't paid for it. The courts will not recognize that as an official contract trade. So ijab and qabul is basically, like we said, offer and acceptance that has to be done at that time. So yalzamu, so it becomes binding now. So when ijab and qabul is done, the contract becomes binding. When the contract becomes binding, what this basically now means is that this contract cannot be broken unilaterally. Like if I, let's say, want to buy a chocolate bar, I go to shops, I buy a chocolate bar, and I give the money, and they give me the chocolate, and then I walk out the shop, and then I look at the chocolate, and I think to myself, you know what? I don't want this chocolate bar. I don't want a Snickers. I want, crunchy bar. So crunchy bar, I can't go back to the shop and say to them, I don't want this. Give my money back. I can't say that. That's a unilateral nullification of the contract. I can't do that. Right? It has to be done bilaterally. Both sides have to do it. So this is why when you have a contract and once ijab and qabul has been done, you cannot break it. Now, there are certain things, for example, like in the UK, in England, when you're buying a property house, then you putting an offer in and your offer being accepted, this is not technically how the British law recognizes ijab and qabul. Their understanding of the binding of the contract is when the keys are handed over to the customer. All right, so the customer the buyer receives the keys. That's when it becomes binding now. Prior to that, it's not binding. Anyone can back out. So this is why when we have ijab and qabul, when we say Islamically, we understand it in a certain context. Okay, so now if an ijab and qabul has taken place, then if one of the parties is not willing to hand the money over, or one of the parties is not willing to give the item over, the other party can go court and force them to hand it over. Right? So let's say, for example, I buy a laptop. I go to the shop and I say, I want to buy the laptop. And they say, okay, it's fine. Right? And they give me the price, £500. And I give them money. They're not giving me the laptop. So what I can do is I can go to the court. I can tell the court, show them proof. I purchased this and they're not giving me the laptop. And then they will send authorities or police, whatever, to tell them to hand over the laptop to me. Right? So that's my right, that is. Okay? So when ijab and qabul is done, the contract becomes binding on both parties. When we say binding, this is recognized in the context of where there is a government that can enforce the law. So a government that can enforce the law, this is where these rules make sense. Otherwise, if there's no government that can enforce the law, then it's simply just an individual sort of like thing. So anyway, يلزم بإيجاب وقبول, right? So أوجب يوجب إيجاب, and قبول is from acceptance. وضع للمضي or ماضي. So these two words have to be in the madi form, in the past form. Right? So you have past, present, future. So according to the Arabs, whenever they make a contract, it's a bit strange. Whenever they make a contract, the wording they use is actually technically, it's not a sentence that indicates a khabar. It's not something that happened in the past. It's actually something which you're initiating. So because you're initiating it, the wording you have to use has to be something which gives certainty. And the only words that give certainty in Arabic are past verbs. So that's why the fuqaha say that the wording that you have to use in a trade contract has to be words which relay a past meaning. Even though you didn't do it in the past, you're doing it right now. But it's as though it's done and dusted, like you say. So the question now comes, if I'm speaking English and I go to the shops, when I buy a chocolate bar, do I have to speak in past? Do I have to say, I bought this chocolate bar from you? And the shopkeeper says, I accepted your money. No, it's all dependent upon the convention. In them days, the Arabs, that's the convention in them days. Now in today's times, if Arabs were to become accustomed with other types of phrases, then that would be accepted as well. So the Hanafis say that as long as the convention is taken into consideration, whatever words the convention, society, the urf, they use for buying and selling, that wording is totally fine. Yeah, so wudi'a lil madi. This is why, some people get confused when they read the Hanafi text and they say you have to use a past verb, you have to use, some sort of like madi, and then it's like, but in English we don't use that, so does that mean that all our trades are not valid? No, not necessarily. Yeah, that's not how it works. So anyway, wudi'a lil madi wa bi ta'atin. Yeah, so finally, last word, wa bi ta'atin. Ta'atin is from ta'ata yata'ata ta'atiyan. Yeah, from ata. Yeah, which is like something that's gifted over, given over, and something that's taken, a'ta yu'ti. So ta'atin is basically like a tacit or silent way of handing something over. For example, when you go to the shops, and let's say you go to Tesco's and you buy something, do you ever speak to the cashier? Possibly, but usually it's very rare. You just kind of get your stuff scanned, and they might just say to you, on the machine, it might just pop up, right? Your your receipt is this much. That's it. So this kind of like silently kind of accepting, acknowledging one another and handing over the money and handing over the product, this is something which is allowed as well. In other words, you don't even have to verbally say ijab and qabul, as long as it's understood. Yeah, as long as it's understood implicitly. So this is why, like I said, if you go to one of those vending machines and you put money in, you're not really kind of like saying anything. It's just like the price is there, you put your money in and you're kind of getting it. Or you go to someone, maybe in a car boot sale, and you see, let's say a plant pot that you want to buy, and you just take out money to the guy and you show him your money in your hand, and then he just nods his head and says, take it. Right? So, in other words, the whole concept of transactions, we want to know basically, are the two parties happy to trade? Are they happy? Normally, verbal, affirmation is something that we look for. But if you want to do it through silent tacit approvals, then by all means, go for it. So this is why the Hanafi say this is also allowed, right? So a lot of trading that we do today online as well. Some may say this is a form of a written contract, because you can also do a written form of ijab and qabul as well, where let's say you text someone and you say, I want to buy your car for you, and the guy says, okay, fine, done, right, pick up the car. Right, so that kind of texting is also considered to be a verbal form. You can say a form, extension of verbal form. And it can also, maybe you might with emojis, have a car and have some money, and then the guy just nods his head, puts a thumb up, and that's it, trade's done. So this is what is called known as ta'atin. So bi ijabin wa bi ta'atin, right? There's two ways that the transaction becomes lazim. There's not really a third way of how people would trade, because like normally, if there's a person who is deaf, they usually communicate through signs, and normal people will communicate through words. I don't think there's a third way, right? Besides that, either through signs or either through some verbal communication. Okay, the last thing is, whenever you buy something, when we say a trade has taken place, what we basically mean is, when you go to the shops and you get a receipt and you have an itemized bill. So your itemized bill, let's say you bought 10 things. That's not one contract. That's actually 10 contracts. That's 10 trades have taken place. So 10 ijab and qabuls have taken place basically. And each item is a separate ijab and qabul. And if you bought, 50 things, and you had 50 things on your list, all of those things would be considered to be separate ijabs and qabuls. Yeah, does that make sense? And this is something which generally sometimes people become confused with it. And I think it's very important when you're teaching fiqh, when you're teaching Buyoo, that the people understand what's happening in the world today. How big businesses, how Apple and Google, how they do trade, how countries do trade with each other, how the average person who goes to a shop does trade, how stocks do trade, how people buy online, and so forth. right? So this is why it's very important to understand these. Anyway, Jazakumullah khair. This will summarize what we covered today. So we talked about the bindingness of the contract, and this is done with the two cornerstones, which is ijab and qabul. This is usually done in the past verb form, but we said convention can override that, and we said this trade can also be done via ta'atin, which is an implicit way of trading something without there being any verbal mentioning. Jazakumullah khair, guys, and I will see you guys next time. Let me know if you guys are benefiting from these. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want me to add to the videos. I mean, I'm going to try to add this time. I've added the Arabic text, but next time let me know inshallah what you guys think. And yeah, Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much to all my patrons. Jazakumullah khair. Alhamdulillah, with all of your support, with all of your efforts and your encouragement and motivation, alhamdulillah, this channel has reached where it has today. And there's so much left that I want to do, and there's editing, and there's trying to start new projects as well and get other people involved so that I can focus on producing content. So if you guys want to become patrons and you want to support this channel, then check out the link in the description. Inshallah, there's also videos available for those who are patrons in the Patreon itself that I don't put on my normal YouTube channel. So if you guys want to check that out, inshallah, links in the description, like I said. And Jazakumullah khair, share it with other people. Let me know what you guys think as well. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.